Record? Perfect. Okay, now being 6:15, I'll call the February 24th meeting of the Finance Audit Committee to order. I will, let's see, read the accessibility statements. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Microphones or telephones will be used by all speakers. Large print materials are available upon advance request. If you'd like either of these accommodations, please contact Mary Waldron. The Notice of Non-Discrimination Rights and Protections to Beneficiaries regarding the Title VI Non-Discrimination Protections and the State Non-Discrimination Protections is available on the Old Colony Planning Council website. Thank you. Mary, could we do a roll call vote?
Yes.
Sorry,
Christine
roll call
Joy.
for attendance.
Yes.
Present.
Becky Coletta.
Yes.
And for other members of the council, Dan Salvucci.
Yes.
And Mike Perez.
Yes.
And along with staff, Megan Fournier, Sean Noel, and myself, Mary Waldron. So go ahead,
Mary,
Chair.
so should we just hold the meeting minutes?
I think we should.
They do need to be voted on.
So
let's hold those.
Yep.
And then let's just go to number 3 with Sean presenting the 2026 January financials.
All right. So first 2 pages are the OCPC profit and loss statement. The full P&L shows all the details of the income and expense sources, but to summarize, income total is, keep going. No, you went too far. That's expenses. Income total's up top. A little further. Right here. That should have been highlighted. I apologize. So total income summarized is $2,200,471.11. If you scroll down to total expenses, puts us at $2,798,538.20, showing a current loss of income, negative income at $598,067.09. This is one of the questions that John had, just to be clear for the members that are in attendance. And this is due to a couple of factors. Our income in this period is offset by a couple of items. We had received 2 grants in fiscal 25, one for the efficiency and regionalization and the other one for DLTA augmentation. And we received all of the income for the grants, even though they're used through fiscal 26, we received all of that income in fiscal 25. So it's inappropriate to show that income again here since we showed it last year. The other additional piece is AAA billings for the 4th quarter of calendar year 25. Or the 1st quarter of FY26 they were not put in at the time that she created this profit and loss statement. Part of the reason for that is that AAA had only supplied us with a partial contract, and they were limiting the amount that we could bill. We were also waiting on approval for carryover amounts that we were pulling from FY25 into FY26. And unfortunately, I did not have the opportunity to put those billings in place before Brenda ran this P&L for the financial packet. That, in addition, is almost $300,000. The other 2 incomes are showing like DLT augmentation was $138,000. Efficiency and regionalization was $124,000. So the effective amount, that number would be much lower if those items had been included in the income for this statement. So does anybody have any questions about that, or we can move on?
Just so I understand, Sean, the overhead expenses applied, the 845 offset, that's the money that we received in fiscal 2025 that's now being
overhead expenses applied are actually a wash for the overhead that we charge against the grants. So Megan, if you could scroll up a little bit to page 1. So when we calculate labor, okay, we calculate we take all of our direct labor, and then we charge 105.54%, which is our approved NICRA rate. We apply that to that amount. And so that's what gives us project overhead. Okay. That expense is offset by, if you scroll down a little bit, Megan, back to the lower number. So it's effectively a wash. Okay. It's overhead expenses applied. Okay. This is not money that we should be looking to take any profit from. It's money that we use to pay for administrative expenses.
Got it. Thanks.
Hmm?
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question, Dan.
Sure.
When I see
Go
the
ahead.
last number is minus 598 and change,
Yep.
does that mean that with no money in the budget?
No, not at all. What that means is that when this report was calculated for the packet, there
Yeah,
was income that, first of all, there's income that we have already received in FY25 because both DLTA and the efficiency and regionalization grant paid
Yeah.
they paid the entire grant up front. So they paid all that money in FY25, and we therefore have to show it as income in that fiscal period. So what that does is it lowers our income that we're able to show in fiscal 26 because we've already claimed it, although we hadn't realized the expenses yet. So that total amount is approximately $262,000. Okay. And then that addition with the fact that we had not billed $298,000 of AAA money yet because we were waiting for the final contract to be able to bill against accurately. We ran into this problem last year where we submitted bills as they came in the October, November, and December period. And then what happened was AAA gave us a contract that was only partial and started rejecting invoices because they hadn't approved enough money for the amount that we had billed. So this year we waited a little bit until we got the actual contract in front of us so that we could bill accurately and not have that happen again. Once we
all right,
did
so
that-
there's money in the coffers.
correct.
Yes.
Yes. We're not $500,000 in the red. Not at all.
As soon as I
So-
saw that, I panicked.
Yeah, no.
So
not at all.
Madam Chair, if I could, I think this is the piece that is always going to be the more aggressive, assertive that we are after grants. They come in all different shapes and sizes. Some of our grants are calendar year, some of them are federal fiscal year, and some of them are state fiscal year. And so as the money comes and goes and ebbs and flows, so the fact that Dan and I know John Costa and others are reading through this, I think that's the beauty of it, that people are asking the questions. I will tell you that if there is any inclination that our budget is out of sorts, you would be the first to know before a meeting. But it's a legitimate question. So I'm just,
Okay.
it can be a little bit complicated. So
Yep.
thank you, Dan and Becky and
Okay.
others for the
And
questions.
we will actually, sorry, Mary, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we will actually address this on page 5 when we start looking at
Right,
budgeted
correct.
expenses. Okay?
Yeah.
And you have Brenda's sheet,
I do.
right? For notes,
Yep.
perfect. Okay.
Yep. So Megan, if you want to move down to, again, page 2 for ROM, profit and loss for ROM. Okay, so at this point for ROM's income total is $50,450. Total expenses are $66,088. This shows a net loss of $15,638. This is primarily an investment within the building. Almost that entire amount matches work that we have had done on the roof that was necessary. So going down to page 3.
But just to Dan's point, or it is not a loss of our
Right,
budget.
that's,
No,
right.
It's the terminologies that Sean's using, but the reality is that the ROM budget is a healthy budget. And we
Yep.
actually are going to be receiving funds from a short-term rental of a local business that's going to rent out for us over the next couple months.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
right. I hate
Yeah.
that word deficit.
yeah,
I
it
know.
is always tough, and it's just a matter of income versus expense on
Yeah, yeah.
these sheets. I mean, honestly, if you're looking at liquid capital just for ROM, we'll easily have $120,000 to $125,000 in the bank. So,
Okay.
Should we pay more rent to ROM though? As you know, should we approve any increase to ROM, or is ROM in
Let
a
me tell
solid
you,
enough position?
after this snowstorm, Rom's gonna need to pay me a whole lot more money for shoveling up in front of
Yeah.
that building. That's all I'm gonna
Right.
tell you. But
Yeah.
to your point, I think, Becky, in the management of the building, it literally takes Megan, Sean, Brenda, Charlie, myself, just to manage all the different things that go on with the building. Maintaining, but it's not just the outside, it's the inside. And when the heat wasn't working 2 weeks ago, calling folks and things of that nature. So we've had the discussion about whether OCPC should be charging more for the management of the building, because it's a full-time job and everybody does a little bit of everything. But I'm the question I think you asked, Becky, was should OCPC be paying more toward ROM? That's what you were asking, right? Yeah. I would say my honest opinion would be no, but I was missing why you were raising that question.
Well, no, it's just that it seems to me that ROM is sort of a break-even type business at this point, because we have not used that entity to try to raise other grant money. And so it really, so when I see us, ROM investing in infrastructure, my question is whether OCPC needs to, is the lease almost like a pass-through of expenses where we have to cover those expenses? So a lot of times you have a triple net lease. If taxes go up, or if expenses or maintenance go up, the tenant pays more of that. So I'm thinking of it like a lease situation with a pass-through of a lot of expenses.
So two things I would
If I
say is,
could,
I know it started off by saying that that we're not utilizing 501c3 to raise funds. That's not a correct. I mean, we have been still looking at that as a venue, Becky. The fact of how the 501c3 is set up still has some complications. So been working with Jason, Paul, and Charlie, and myself, been working specifically about, not just only the ROM, but maybe we form a CDC to bring other funds in. But we have an allocation of funds, and I believe it may not be in here, when Brenda does her one sheet page, one of those allocations, right? So we're paying a loan down that has to do with, ROM is paying the loan, and right is on there. There it is, Rockland loan interest expense.
Yep.
But the allocation, I don't think that we're losing money. I don't think that we're necessarily making money, but I would be cautious about having us pay more money, particularly if management of OCPC has been putting in a boatload of time.
if I could, as somebody who looks at both sides of this every month, ROM is effectively break even. The amount of rent that we take in is usually adequate to cover our bills, and actually in the summertime when our utilities are lower, we actually make a little money each month. But I believe Mary brings up a very good point. While we could easily probably justify increasing the rent to OCPC for the ROM, if you're going to do that, it would make just as much sense to take a look at an increase in the management fee because of the activities of all the people that help manage the building. And I really think it would just offset. If you're going to give yourself another $1,000 of rent, it would probably be offset by really allocating $1,000 to the management of the building, which would be justified.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
So what I will recommend, Becky and Christina and others, I will bring this up with Charlie and Brenda, again with Sean as well, and just explore that possibility and what it may be, and we'll come back with some further recommendations next time. Again, it's only just Sean and I and Megan on the meeting for today, but we'll explore that a little bit deeper. And then at that time, we will also have an update about what we're thinking about doing for bringing in other additional funds through a 501c3/non CDC.
Okay, but don't feel like you have to do that for me, Mary. I mean, Sean's and your explanation both satisfied my questions, but the CDC piece is kind of interesting.
It is. We'll have something for you next month.
Okay, moving on to page 3, AAA. So, let's see, outstanding pass-through funds at this point of year, $316,601. Total outstanding administration and ombudsman's funds are $100,619.28. Total outstanding for AAA funds is $417,220.27. Let's see here. Volunteer transportation received $280,000. I'm sorry, 200. That would be nice, but $280 in donations, putting its new ending balance at $164,687.44. Budgeted expenses. So, first column show the FY26 expense budget, combined OCPC and ROM. January total expenses were a total of $1,881,798. Remaining funds were $1,419,327. Budgeted annual expenses as of January is $3,301,125. Ideal percentage in the 7th month would be 58.37%. And January shows expenses sitting at 57% even, which is a 1.37% or $594,479 surplus in budgeted income over expense. So as you can see, Don, from Dan, I apologize. From
I've been called worse.
From a budget standpoint, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're in decent shape.
Good.
Okay. Budgeted income on page 6. First column shows last year's budget to capture income on grants that started in prior years. I don't know if she highlighted those, but those would be the two that I mentioned earlier. Second columns, FY26 totals expected. Okay. Would be budgeted annual income as of January is $3,895,604. And pass-through funds on page 7. So at this point, AAA pass-through budget $1,531,618, and funds remaining $974,525. Bottom space shows other pass-through fund details and cumulative totals. Please note that all pass-through funds are reimbursed 100%. So then page 5. So this is her one sheet, or our one sheet. Monthly payroll, approximately $173,333. Monthly indirect accounts payable, $333,049 in OCPC, $6,234 in ROM. Total $212,993. Cash position for Rockland Trust Savings, $659,139. Northeastern Savings Money Market, $106,296. Northeast Savings, $111,955. Rockland Trust payroll account, currently, this was as she did the report, $51,131. That, what we do with payroll, just so everybody understands, we make a cash transfer out of our operating account at the beginning of every month to cover the paydays for the month that we're in. So at this point, this was done probably the week before the last payroll in February. Last payroll, each payroll right now is costing us about $40,000. Rockland Trust checking, $846,597. So let's see here. Rockland Trust building loan, where are we here? So total of accounts, I apologize. So total of accounts is $1,944,472 minus restricted funds of $411,120. The restricted funds are listed above. equals total funds available of $1,533,352, plus outstanding accounts receivable amounts at this point of $491,877. ROM current balance, $120,211. And principal balance left on the building loan after the January payment was $262,385. So as far as OPEB summary goes, again, we had another positive month in January. We saw a gain on account value of $30,000, almost 31. We made a contribution of 5,000. Let me see, change in account value from the previous month was 2.37%, putting the new total value of the fund at $1,535,837. And that is the financial report.
Any questions for Sean on any of the material that he covered? All right. We do not have a quorum, so I would
The financials are going to be brought up tomorrow at council meeting. So
okay. So we will say, but they're not this thorough review, right, Mary? It'll be
no, it's going to be it will be a
the Reader's
short
Digest version.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I'll say that that we reviewed it and that
we're in good financial standing.
okay, perfect. All right. So normally we take a vote on this to bring it to the full council for their approval. But where we don't have a quorum, we're not going to be doing that tonight. So
and Madam Chair, if I could just on this for the March meeting, we'll be preparing for the FY27 budget. So all of the discussion that we had earlier, cumulative of the ROM and the management and things of that nature, we'll be doing a thorough overview for the March finance agenda.
okay, perfect. Because
I think the storm put some folks out of their schedule, so we'll ensure that there's a quorum so we can have that be fully discussed.
Great, thank you, Mary, very much. Now, did we want to talk about number 4 tonight? Did Sean want to talk about that?
I'm going to talk about this.
Okay.
I can certainly comment on details.
Yeah, but I'm good on this, Sean. Yep. But thank you, though. All that this really is we won't take an action on it today. We'll wait for next finance meeting. But what I had been asking, we've been there are 2 staff members, and we'll leave their names out for now, who are entitled for sick time, unused sick time payout upon they retiring from OCPC. And we've known this for a while. And I have recommended to establishing a restricted fund that we start putting monies into this fund.
Yeah.
So we have an amount that we know what it could possibly be to pay out unused sick time. One staff member uses sick time a little bit more frequently, and the other one not so much. And I just really wanted to make sure that as we are planning and as we're planners to plan for the future, that we start putting funds into this account so that we're not hit with a large number. Say either one of these 2 employees could retire tomorrow and we would have to do a payout of sick time, and that could affect the budget. So that's the commentary, and that's why the line item, I had placed it on the agenda so we can at least have that conversation.
So more to come next month.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Dan and Mike, are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right, thank you. Excellent. Okay. All right. On to number 5, Mary, the retiree healthcare insurance costs.
Yep. This one I will have Sean talk about.
Okay.
Okay. So as everybody's aware, as we report on the OPEB account, the OPEB trust is designed to help us pay for healthcare benefits for our retired employees. We currently do not pull from that account to cover these costs because we are attempting to get ourselves fully funded in that account, which will require us to have about a little over, I believe it's somewhere in the $3 million range invested. So, but we did want to make sure that everybody understands exactly what we're paying for retiree healthcare costs at this time. So one of the reasons that this became kind of prevalent is that with the recent loss of a retiree, their survivor started receiving benefits. And also, like I said, they're also in a situation where they had a family plan. And so it was a significant amount of money every month. It's approximately $2,400 every month. So we started taking a look at these costs. It turns out that it doesn't turn out. We've been doing it for quite a while. But we currently pay approximately $76,000 a year to cover our retiree healthcare insurance costs. Now, we also invest $60,000 a year into the OPEB fund. If we were to begin pulling the retiree healthcare costs out of OPEB at a rate of $80,000 a year and only depositing 60, we would get nowhere fast.
Right.
So this year we have traditionally covered these costs because we have the ability to do so. And it is our recommendation that we continue to do so until we get to a point where we are fully funded in the OPEB trust. But we did want to make everybody aware of how much those costs were actually, we wanted to put a dollar figure on that amount.
And Sean, I don't think it was in the packet. I'm not sure, but we had Sean reached out to the GIC coordinator. And so these policies,
yeah,
these policies were in place prior to me coming on board. And again, at this point, it's just a discussion. Just wanted to bring it up. It actually took me a little bit by surprise, but at the same time, it's a cost it's a cost healthcare across the board for everybody, for communities and everybody. It really has become a much more focused in terms of looking at how it's affecting us. So we are part of GIC. Our employees are part of the GIC, and there was a proposal to go up on that, but my understanding that's been held. But this is specifically for the retirees' healthcare insurance costs. At some point, someone was saying, he said, "Well, that's what open." Yes and no. We're not fully at the level that funded, and to be dipping into that is a discussion, I think, that needs some further analysis and direction from the state.
One of the things also that we had looked at was what are the requirements for us to, like, is there a time period or is there a deadline, or are we obligated to do this for the entire life of the retiree and their survivors? There are some rules around that. For instance, we do not have to cover survivor benefits if and when they remarry. If the retiree was in a situation where they are no longer receiving a retirement benefit, in other words, Mary had asked the question, how does that happen? For instance, if somebody is not fully vested in the program, and so they receive a retirement benefit once they leave, up until they spend their principal. For instance, if somebody loses their retirement benefit, that means they are no longer eligible for GIC coverage. Those would be the only two real instances where we would no longer have to cover a retiree.
Possible incarceration as well, because that's how it is for
yes. Thank
U.S.
you,
government.
that is correct.
Yeah, that's the other part, is incarceration.
We tried to ignore that part. We were hoping that we never have to deal with it, but you're right. So
I know it's there. That's why I mentioned it.
Christine?
I'm sorry?
No, Becky
Oh,
had her hand raised.
I mean, we're a small enough group. I'll just jump in, I guess. It looks like at the budget that it shows up as retirees grandfathered life, but medical fringe is a line item, but I don't see retiree medical. Is the medical
Yeah.
fringe of 251,800 include the retiree number?
Yeah, good question,
Uh,
Sean. Because
I'm,
it's never been pulled out before. I think it was just under. So here's what would happen. When this information would come in by way of mail, I would see it and I would review it. I don't see any of these numbers now because both Sean and receive it electronically. So I mean that's the
so
process. It works, but go ahead, Sean.
yeah, to answer the question, the medical fringe, the 251,800, that does include retirees. That this effectively covers all money that we send to GIC to keep those policies in place. Retiree grandfathered life, this was an old Boston Mutual policy that we have for a handful of I think we have one active employee now and some other retirees, or maybe the other way around. But there's literally 4 or 5 people that this affects. So that doesn't have anything to do with the retiree cost of healthcare. All that is listed into medical and fringe. So if you want to pull the approximate $76,000 um, that we pay for the retirees, that would again drop that number down, and you'd be at what, 180 something?
Yeah, I mean, part of me says I look at this and say somehow we include this in our budget, and effectively we're paying about 136,000 a year for retirees between what we're contributing to OPEB and what we're paying on a current basis for health insurance, and we're able to manage that within our budget. I think that's a sign of our strength, our financial
Mhm.
strength as an organization, because the less we take from OPEB and the more we put in, and hopefully have compounding of profits on that money through the OPEB trust fund, that we're kind of letting that money work for us so that we can hit that
Yeah.
3 million a little more quickly. So it sounds like we're in a fairly good position, even though the numbers sound bigger than we would maybe expect them to look.
No, I agree with that. I mean, it effectively the way I'm kind of looking at the retiree expense right now is it's almost like a contribution directly to OPEB. Um, we're not pulling money out of that account. We're continuing to let it grow and gain. So again, that's my own personal thought, but I agree, Becky.
Maybe in
Mary, are
the,
you concerned about it? Oh,
I was just going to say, I would really like to discuss that more in depth as part of the budgeting process, because I'd like to know more about this, and yeah, I would be interested to know a lot more about this money and all the provisions and all of that. So,
So,
maybe we could spend more time on it at a future meeting to really take a deeper dive.
It's one of the reasons why I just had discussion on it and not take action on, because we just did not have enough time. And there were some materials I wanted to get to, the legal opinion from GIC and some of the other things. So let's pull some information together. Again, a deeper dive. That again is the reason why we have these finance meetings, for us to continue to keep peeling back. It's not to find issues or concerns, but it's again to know where our costs are. And I personally am not necessarily concerned, but at the same time, I was a little bit surprised at the policies that were pre-me about having. I mean, I think I was more surprised at myself that I didn't know about this. So again, we will continue to peel back this onion of the healthcare insurance cost, and then again, maybe make some recommendations going forward.
Becky, Mike, Dan, are you guys okay with that? Taking
Yeah,
a pass on this now?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Since Old Colony Planning Council as itself is a government entity, you don't have, they don't put into, like your OPED account. Are you part of Plymouth County or no?
We are.
We are.
All right, so you're part of it like everybody else. What about retirement plan as far as Medicare and they're not eligible for that?
Anyone who's 65 and older are eligible for.
Oh, all right. So that's
So all of those things come into play, but again, we pay into GIC, so I'm 65. I still pay into my GIC and Medicare.
So Dan,
okay.
just to kind of clarify for you, the retirees that we currently pay for, each one of those people, with the exception of one because of their age, and I don't want to put names out, but each one of those folks, we're paying for Medicare Part B supplemental plans.
Okay. All right.
So which is a much lower cost than a traditional health plan.
You got that
So
right.
yeah. So
I tell you what I'm
um,
paying.
yeah,
Yeah.
but so like I said, if that was a question as to whether what type of plan are we paying for our retirees, those are the plans we pay for.
That's a good plan. Okay. But don't the retirees pay into that too out of their paycheck?
That's
We
that's
currently,
Go ahead,
yeah,
Sean.
we currently do not require them to. And
Oh.
that is one of the questions that we're seeking a legal opinion on. We, in the past, and again, this is before Mary got here and certainly before I got here, the decision was made that the retirees, we would pay 100%. And so the question is, what percentage could we charge? So that's where we had asked for a legal opinion there. So we do have an option there. And the one thing that they did tell us is that if we did decide that we want to charge these folks all of a sudden, we would have to do it at the implementation of a plan year.
Right.
So not be able to just call them up and say, hey, we know you've never been paying anything, but next month you owe us X. We would need to give them some warning and put it in with the new plan year. And that's kind of a discussion that is happening at this time as to whether
but employees that are still working, they do put into that plan a cost.
Employees pay 25%, which is the maximum allowed under GIC.
Yeah. Okay. Cause I do contracts for the town, so I'm trying to mix them together.
Right.
Well, I do look at it though, like people who are already retired who worked for a long time expecting the 100%. It would be a big discussion, I think, to change
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unless you grandfather some of them in.
Right. It would be hard to change it, but we could certainly change it going forward for new hires, but have to
Yeah.
honor. But
And given the
Yeah.
current situation of healthcare costs, and I mean, they're going up everywhere.
Oh
they
yeah.
are.
Maybe now is the time to maybe have a discussion about it.
Well, that's why it's
Yeah.
on the agenda, Sean.
Yeah. Sure.
So again, we just came into some information just recently. It was maybe 2 weeks ago. So when it was forming the budget, the agenda for today, that's the reason why we're
Mhm.
having it on. So we'll have more information for the next finance. We won't have it for tomorrow's meeting. We will have it for the next finance meeting, and perhaps maybe even just some without having to have open meeting law be violated. Maybe there's a couple of side conversations. Maybe Christine, U.S. Treasurer, and Brenda, we can just get together to go walk over that.
Right.
Perfect. All right, sounds good. All right, so Mary, on to number 6, status of state retirement legislation.
So last Friday, again, we had our Mass Association of Regional Planning Agencies, the lobbyist / consultant that we have that's tracking the legislation. Both 2 chairs met with the House Ways and Means Chair, there seems to be some potential movement to have our bill move forward, but it is still not across the finish line. So the reason why this item is on, because that's the number. Go back 6 years ago with Christine about the retirement legislation. So the treasurer's office wants us to pay a certain percentage. We do have that. We meaning I've had Brenda having some funds allocated. We could potentially afford, 1%, 2%, maybe 3%, but anything above that would pretty much bankrupt us. Not bankrupt us. It would cost us a hefty, and we would have to reprioritize.
It would hinder the operation. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the status of the legislation. I will take on the next one, the state and federal legislation. So the government shutdown of the Homeland Security has not affected Old Colony Planning Council with our grant funding. We continue to monitor. This is on because there are potential of executive orders or judgments within the courts. But right now, our state and federal funding continues to be status quo.
Good.
Thank you, Mary. I don't think we've got any other business, do we, tonight?
We do not.
All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for attending. I appreciate particularly Dan and Mike joining us. I apologize we didn't have a quorum where we weren't able to take more definitive action, but we needed to get through this information so that we can bring it to the council tomorrow. So with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Dan.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Good night, everybody.
See you
We'll
tomorrow.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
bye.
Yeah, see you Friday for breakfast.
There we
Yeah.
go.